Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Moments away, Meg Cowden. But first, Simple Grow, a product in which will help your plants grow better.
Are you worried about your plant growth? Provide your plants with what they need to grow to their potential. Simple Grow. They offer 100% organic worm castings at simplegrow.com. Unlike other worm casting products, when you order from Simple Grow, you're getting 100% worm castings, not filler plus worm castings. You can promote ideal soil structure and aeration with Simple Grow all natural and odor-free worm castings. There's only one ingredient, worm castings. No chemicals or additives will seep into your food, and it doesn't smell like other fertilizers. You can find for indoor and outdoor use by the bag, bundle, ton, or truckload. Check out what they have with Simple Grow 100% worm castings at simplegrow.com.
Well, Holly, let's go to the Proclamation Hotline, brought to you by Proclamation Goods, and bring in our guest for this week.
Meg Cowden is a passionate home gardener, gardening consultant, speaker, and author of her new book, Plant, Grow, Harvest, Repeat. Welcome to the program, Meg.
Hi, Holly. Hi, Joey. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day to join us, not only educating Holly and myself, but all of our listeners across the country. We thank you for that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Of course, as fellow enthusiastic gardeners, what better thing to do than to share our love and passion together?
Absolutely. Now, you grow almost all of your vegetables for your family in in Minnesota, Zone 4A. Now, we have gardeners all over the country. What's best season extenders and tips that you can offer? I know we're kind of getting in the warmer months, but we're always thinking about how long can we extend this thing out. So what are some of your tricks to lengthen the fall growing season?
Yeah, I'd say, we are heading into the height of planting our summer gardens, but don't just think summer, really think beyond that first frost. So right now I'm seeding things for my late fall garden, like I'm seeding fall celery and Brussels sprouts. And very soon, in early June, I will be seeding all of my fall cabbages and things like that. And so really be creative about finding ways in your summer garden to kind of refresh it and renew it. I always save space in my garden for my fall brassicas, kind of my long season cabbages. I don't plant anything there right now. So if you really want a stellar fall garden, don't plant your entire garden between, at the very beginning of the growing season. Definitely allocate space for a fall garden.
Now, you're not planting anything in that particular area. Are you doing anything special with the soil, or are you just letting it stay fallow until you're ready to plant your fall there?
That's a great question. I cover crop with buckwheat, which is super fast to mature. So where I want to have my fall brassicas that go in the ground a little after 4th of July, I always cover crop it so that it's both to cover the soil and build soil, but it's also to prevent me from being a little generous with the packets of seeds.
Right.
It's just to give me a kind of a bumper to bump up against there so I don't overplant that area.
And many of our radio stations are in the colder areas of the United States, but we've got to figure out how to grow a lot of stuff in a very short period of time. Those who are in the South that listen to us, you guys kind of have, year-round gardening, and we don't know what that means up here in the North.
It's interesting you say that, Joey, because I've talked to people. I've done a lot of podcasts with the launching of my book and everything. And we have daylight, and people in southern climates don't have that. So while we have a shorter growing season, I've been in the Midwest for almost 20 years now. So I'm a little partial. I think despite our shorter growing season, I actually think it's pretty fantastic what we're able to accomplish.
True. And we get a break in the winter, too. I enjoy that. I enjoy that break rather than going 365. I think that would be a little. You get burned out pretty quick in my mind, I would think.
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to do it, but I tend to agree that I do love living seasonally here in a northern climate.
I absolutely agree. So speaking of northern climate, what was one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome growing in a northern climate, and how did you do so?
Yeah, so we moved here from Oregon back in 2003, and it was a zone 8, but we didn't really grow year-round there. I would say the biggest hurdle for me, Holly, really was thinking outside of the frost-free growing season. And so for the first, 5 years of our career or more, our gardening career, we really focused on the very traditional vegetables, that really enjoyed frost-free, really warm soils. So it wasn't really until I got enough years of experience under my belt and really felt comfortable growing from seed, then we started thinking about expanding the growing season. So it was a very slow process, but that to me was probably the largest key to unlocking the fact that, yes, let's celebrate everything that we can grow in a colder climate.
Okay, that's a really good point. So your newest book here, Plant, Grow, Harvest, Repeat, came out very recently. What is something in the book you can tell us about that will encourage our listeners to check it out?
Yeah, so my book is all about succession planting, and I look at it from the lens of landscapes. And so really looking at here in the Midwest, we have prairies as I think a very wonderful instructional guide for us to really consider what it means for something to be in season and what things look like across the seasons. So a prairie has different flowers that are in bloom anywhere from very early in spring all the way until after a last frost. And not only that, but from one year to another, different plants are going to show up and are going to have stronger blooming periods than they did maybe in the years past or in the future. And so there's this constant kind of dynamic changing. And I really see that as a beautiful example of how we can consider our gardens. And so, for example, what kind of seeds are we looking at in March that we might want to plant in the garden? Because I do here in Zone 4, I plant seeds in March in my garden under a low tunnel. And what kind of seeds could we be planting in September, like all the way through? And it's not only just vegetables that I talk about in the book, it's also flowers. It's perennial flowers, as I had mentioned, prairies. It's native edibles, it's annual flowers, and it's also fruit. So it takes succession and helps you look at it. And really, I hope that anyone who loves reading, I put a lot of heart into the writing of the book. I love to write. And so that was a real honor to be able to pen a book. But it's an invitation. And really the take home message is that every day is really a day to plant a garden. So even if people are listening to this right now and they haven't gotten a garden in the ground yet, today is a great day to start gardening for the season. And there's so many wonderful foods you could plant at a wide variety of time throughout the growing season. And that's what I really hope the book unlocks for people is the possibility that they can go into the garden anywhere from, March until September and plant seeds that they will be able to consume that season.
That's fantastic. So we are talking with Meg Cowden. She's a passionate author, home gardener, and more.
Now, Meg, I'm going to take the assumption there are certain people that garden for fun, for a hobby. You seem to be one that does it because it's passionate and it's important, and you are able to supplement what you grow and utilize that, and you don't have to spend money elsewhere in order to get that produce. Am I wrong or right on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, the goal when we decided to move to a little more acreage was to really see if we could feed ourselves year round. And, we do in that, we've got the canned foods and the frozen foods, but, things are getting a little tight here right. In May. I mean, I've got the potatoes are in the fridge and the carrots are in the fridge at this point, and so are the beets, but,
a career gardener, not a hobby gardener.
Yeah, it's really a lifestyle. And I feel like it's really a privilege to be able to choose to try and feed ourselves for as long as possible. I also personally, as someone like you guys probably too, one of my favorite things to do is to go into the grocery store and really kind of look around and see what seems to be, right now it's all mostly California grown and beyond in the Midwest here, but I can go to the store right now and say, oh yeah, they've got bok choy. Well, my bok choy is ready here in my garden now. So we really try to eat seasonally, but I also love the challenge of attempting to replicate the grocery store in my own garden so that we have as much diversity as possible any given day of the season.
Well, with that being said, what are your tips for maximizing your garden? Intercropping comes to mind when I hear maximizing. What are some of your tips in order to get the most out of the area that you have?
Yeah, yes, intercropping, interplanting, that's for sure a huge one. I also really, truly believe that, especially in colder climates, we are not starting our growing season early enough. And that very simple thing of starting our garden even 2 to 3 weeks earlier is going to open that space up earlier in the growing season when we have the height of summer and really warm soils, and give you the opportunity to reset that space. So the idea of maximizing not only within a space, but like temporally thinking about how to maximize your space across the entire growing season. And so that really helps you. In order to do that, you need to lean into the crops that do well at those times. So fast growing Asian greens and radishes and arugula and cilantro, and you return to those in the fall again. And the other thing in terms of maximizing the space is really think about your space. I really like to think about your space spatially. So in addition to like when you talk about intercropping, Joey, I also think really of you're going to have an understory and an overstory in your garden, no matter what you plant. You plant your tomatoes, they're going to become kind of the trees of that space. But before they do, the sunlight is really going to permeate the garden underneath it, the soil. And so what could you put there that could grow quickly? Or it's really about matching crops. In terms of intercropping, matching crops that have different maturation rates so that they can both have just the ideal growing conditions, right? You're not going to grow radishes under a heavy shade of tomatoes. They're just not going to bulb for you, So, and to me, like it's an invitation to explore and play with your seeds and play with your garden and play with your space, because the time that you spend as a gardener in your garden is as important as any book or any YouTube channel or any radio show or any book you're going to read is going to give you. Is really like, I think you and I would probably both agree, we are here to help people get their hands in the earth and really have those experiences for themselves, because that to me is the ultimate knowledge that someone can gain.
Right. We can guide you, but until you have firsthand experience in knowing what your soil or that plant does in your backyard, I can only give you so much and you can only give them so much. They have to experience and learn in their environment how that works.
Yeah, and to me, that's a joy that I would never want to steal from someone. I just get so much joy from the constant learning in the garden that I think it's just really a gift for us to kind of help people find their way there and then let them take it from there.
I absolutely agree. So speaking of joy from the garden, you and your spouse started gardening together very, very early on as a couple, and so have Joey and I. Now, did you both garden before you knew each other? Was it a new experience for either of you? And is there something you guys do to keep the garden passion going, or is it just a natural passion for you both?
Yeah, we both had parents who gardened. And so, we came to it by having some experience. I grew flowers in pots because my mother always grew flowers. And so we had a little bit of experience. But when we started dating our senior year in college, the first thing we grew together was tomatoes in 5-gallon Homer buckets. That was it. That was how it started. Just 5 tomato plants. We grew them from seeds, grew them under a fluorescent light with some cinder blocks on the kitchen floor, real simple setup. And it's just grown from there. And it's such a huge part of our relationship and such a continued shared passion. And we've had this dream of having a garden of this size really since before we were engaged. We went to a wedding that spring of college friends, and I still remember seeing they had a beautiful kitchen garden at this place in Oregon, and we were just like, oh, we want a garden like this someday. And it took us 25 years, but we got there.
You grew tomatoes in your dorm room or in college. Some people decide to grow other things. You went the route of tomatoes, so proud of you.
We kept it legal, yes.
Well, how can our listeners find out more about you, and how can they get your book?
Yeah, so my social media handle is Seed to Fork, and I have a website, seedtofork.com. Those are the best ways to find me. I newly launched a gardening guild, so a subscription-based gardening club on my website this spring, kind of coinciding with the book and kind of a shift in how I'm offering my expertise. And so that is the Modern Garden Guild. You can find out about that at seedtofork.com. My book is available everywhere books are sold. I highly encourage people to support their independent bookstores. The Kindle version has been going on sale quite a bit on Amazon. I've seen it on sale a couple of times for like $4, which is a huge deal. So look out for that. Amazon has a great not selection, but quantity of books. My book went into a second printing just a few days after it published in March. So if you can't find the book at an independent bookstore right now, support Amazon, I guess, because they've got a pretty good stash of the book until the second printing comes into the States here sometime in the summer.
Well, Meg, we greatly appreciate the time you've offered us and the education you provided for Holly and myself and all of our listeners. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great growing season. Take care.
Thank you.
And when we
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.